Hey everyone, a special little YouTube intro for you on this episode of the podcast. For those of you who didn't spoil it last week, this is something we're trying out. We're trying to see what it's like doing the podcast here on the channel, as well as everywhere else, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, you name it. You can listen to it when you're walking out and about. But if you do want to watch it, you do want to sit down and enjoy the show, then I would love to know what you think of this. So please do enjoy, leave me a comment, and I'll see you again at the end for something a little bit extra just for you guys on YouTube. Welcome to Cash Chats with me, Andy Webb from BeCleverWithYourCash.com. This is the podcast to help you make the most of your money. Episode 344, it's looking back at my month in money, where I share with you exactly what I've been up to with my spending over the last 30 odd days. I'll also be taking you through some of your wins and losses, and I'll have my deals of the week. But let's waste no more time. This is episode 344 of Cash Chats. So if you haven't listened to one of these episodes before, or if you're watching this on YouTube, we're giving that a try for the moment as well. I like to kick off these monthly updates by talking about what you guys have been doing. There's always some interesting bits and pieces that come on there. I generally ask this over in the Facebook community. If you're not already a member, please do come and join us. BeCleverWithYourCash.com/community. That is the short URL. Apply to join the group and you can ask away all your different questions, share your experiences and help everybody else out. 7,100 of you now, which is absolutely amazing. So many more of you. So let's have a look at what some of you guys have been up to. I asked for your successes, some of your disappointments over the last month. Paul said, I might have mentioned this before. I think you actually have, Paul, but you referred 4 different family members to Octopus Energy customers. They each got £50 credit and you got £50 to each of those as well. So that's, I'm not always a big fan of these referral schemes because often they're not the best deal. You're better off going out, finding a welcome offer, a welcome deal and going for those. But with energy prices right now, there's not really much difference between them. So yeah, if you are thinking of changing your provider, you might not necessarily save much money because of the price cap, but Octopus does have a £50 referral scheme. So yeah, see if you've got a mate or family member who can refer you and you both make a little bit of cash. So yeah, it's a good one to talk about there, Paul. Thanks for that. A couple of you have been getting the money from Nationwide, which I like to see. Andrew, easy £200 switch bonus from Nationwide. That's the final one of the year. Taking advantage of all this year's switches and even managed the triple. So it's been quite a year. That triple was great, wasn't it? NatWest, RBS and Ulster. That was lovely while that one lasted. James has said, I got the Nationwide bonus when I was eligible. I had the bonus from them in September 2021, so I shouldn't have got it this time. And you've got a screen grab there as well, showing me that you have got that confirmation. Really interesting there. I wonder how many of you guys have done something as well. There's always a risk, though, when you do this, they might ask for the money back. It doesn't really happen that often, but actually, we did have someone here, Danny, say that happened to him with a different bank switch. Lloyd's requested that we pay them the switch bonus since he had an active child account with them that he didn't even know about. Now, this does strike me as a little bit of an odd one there. And I asked Danny to actually send me an email on this. So if he does, I'll report back. But, it was not necessarily, I don't think that's against the terms and conditions because he hasn't had a switching bonus from the before. With Lloyd's, you can open up a new account as long as it's the right account. So yeah, I'll look into that one a little bit more and let you know. But that does seem a bit odd. But it does show you potentially their banks might ask for the cash back. So if you are knowingly, I know Danny here wasn't doing this knowingly, if you are knowingly taking advantage of a switching deal or haven't had it before and you shouldn't be eligible for it, don't spend that money straight away. Just keep it accessible just in case they do request to have it. And more on Switch actually, this is an interesting one as well. Willie says, when I set up my direct debit for now broadband and switched over from Lloyds to Nationwide, I found out that I was not eligible for the deal. And this is an important thing that you guys sometimes crops up as a question and often crops up as a mistake. A direct debit is not the same as paying for something with your debit card. And now broadband, when you set up a monthly payment, it is not a direct debit. It is basically a recurring payment. And that's why Willie wasn't eligible for that switching deal, because that one explicitly said it wanted a direct debit. So be really, really careful when you're moving money over from one bank to the next or explicitly setting something up that it is what is asked for. Sometimes they want a standing order. Most of the time they want a direct debit. Sometimes they don't want anything at all. But that recurring payment on a card is not a direct debit. So do watch out for that one. A couple of you talked about your savings accounts here. Paul said, I managed to bag the NS&I 1-year fixed year bond at 6.2% before they pulled it. And you did really well to get that one. And actually, rates have been dropping quite consistently day after day. Those fixed rates are getting lower and lower and lower. We have got a Bank of England meeting this week on Thursday. And obviously, I would do a video on YouTube, an article on the blog, and a special episode of the podcast as well to take you through what they announce. They might increase it again. They might keep it the same. I think it's unlikely that they'll reduce it. And no one's anticipating any reduction for a good while yet. But on that basis, we may well have seen the peak of fixed rates, and getting in that 6.2% while you could was I think it's very hard to beat that short term, long term, ever. Really, really good rate. Lee said, I'm happy with my 1-year bond with Lloyds Bank, has just finished. It was paying 3.4%. They really took the mickey. Now, at the time, maybe 3.4% wasn't too bad a year ago. It probably was a good deal. And this is one of those issues you get often with fixes, isn't it? Is it good at the time you want to fix? If it is, you've got to accept it and be happy to take it. But after a while, it can be quite frustrating to realise that you missed out there, sadly, on that 6.2%. But hopefully, you've managed to get in, I think about 5.85 is the top, 5.9 maybe is the top 1-year fix right now at time recording. So yeah, not 6.2, but certainly better than 3.4%. And let's just end with this one here from Marta. It says, I'm really happy that my attitude changed in this year. Thanks to listening to podcasts, including yours, reading books and being more educated. I save more. I started investing. Budgeting has been sorted. I'm controlling my credit card, using cashback apps and getting money back and such. And that's just here at the end. I paid £10,000 of debt, just £3,000 left, but it's on 0% APR. The change of attitude has really allowed me to deal with everything that comes my way. So well done, Marta. It's really good. I'm really pleased that I'm one of those people helping you get a better understanding of your money, a better control of your money. And hopefully, say if these become not just a short-term change, a longer-term change, and that will mean, you won't get back into those situations. You can start building for your future that you want, building up those savings, spending within your means, can make a big, big difference in the long term. So well done, guys. Thank you so much for sharing it. I'm sorry if I didn't get a chance to shout out to all of you, but I do really appreciate you guys taking part. So this is the episode, this monthly episode. If you haven't heard this one before, again, or you're watching on YouTube for the first time, this is also about me telling you about my money and the idea that you will kind of know, I don't just sit here and tell you this stuff and then just ignore it all. I do walk the walk and I do stuff, and sometimes I also make some mistakes. I am human as well, and sometimes things go wrong. So I like to do this monthly update just to share with you things that have been going on. And also, sometimes they don't deserve a standalone article, a standalone video, or whatever it might be. They're shorter things. Now, this time, what I want to talk about is I actually went on holiday. So in October, the first couple of weeks, I was away. And there are some things that are linked to that. I know it's not holiday season, but we plan holidays all year round, don't we? And some of this stuff could be quite useful to you. Now, we actually went to Chile, which is not necessarily the most normal destination. But we went there, and the flights, we took advantage of my British Airways Amex companion voucher, that 2-for-1 voucher that you can get with those cards, and points that I'd earned to save on flights. Now, some people, when I see this on social media, I see this in blogs, I see it on YouTube, I see it all over the place. Some people will say, this is a free flight. This gives you, not only do you not pay, you're paying for this, it's absolutely free flight, and you get another one, 2-for-1, it's free, it's not costing you anything. And based on how much my tickets would have cost, that's a saving of £2,500. But I am not one of these people, because it isn't true. These flights were not free, okay? And I want to call it was worth maybe myth busting a little bit, this kind of Avios points companion voucher stuff that's out there. I'm not saying you can't save money with them. You absolutely can. But you have to kind of look into the real cost, and then you have to sort of look at how much that cost would be elsewhere. What are the alternatives? Now, I did touch on this in my episode I did back at the end of January this year, saying I'm not always a fan of these of Avios points and vouchers. A lot of the time, I think you are better off just earning cash back and using that to book flights as you wish, right? However you wish. You can shop around and find the best deals. Now, partly for that is to use these companion vouchers. For those of you who don't know about them, they come in different forms. I'm talking about the ones that come with the British Airways and American Express cards, but other airlines do them. And in fact, there is another British Airways one that Barclaycard do. To use them broadly, you need to have enough points amassed to pay for the entire flight. You can't part pay with your points if you want to use this 2-for-1 voucher. And some of these destinations can require a huge number of points. Now, if you're talking about short haul, that's going to be more achievable, right? Long haul can be a challenge. It really can. And that, for me, the number of Avios that we needed for these flights to Chile, these 2 flights, London to Santiago, were massive. They weren't as much as going to like Australia, but they were quite massive. 80,000 per person in economy. Another issue, if you want to go business class or premium economy, whatever it might be, you need even more points, right? And those points are not just given away. You have to spend money to earn them. So you have to generally spend a lot of money in order to amass those points. And thankfully, because I had some decent welcome offers with credit cards, and I obviously try and share them with you on all my different channels, on the pod, on the YouTube and the website and so on, when they come along to take advantage of them, that can help a lot. But if you aren't eligible for them or you've used them before, just trying to amass those number of points on normal spending is quite difficult, right? So that's a big part of why I'm not a huge fan of them. And again, they're not free either. Some of the cards might require you to pay an annual fee. Sometimes you can monthly, a bit less, but generally it's an annual fee. So you've got to factor that cost in. And if you're earning these points, you're not earning alternative points, which can have a value. So I generally give Avios points a value of 0.67 pence. And that's the equivalent if you convert those Avios points into Nectar points and use them in Sainsbury's or eBay or Argos and places like that. Okay, so each is equivalent of 0.67 pence per point, compared to the best cashback card is probably the Chase debit card. 1%, yes, there's a cap every month on that and there are other requirements. But broadly speaking, you are losing a little bit of money there in that exchange by using one of those Avios earning cards rather than another cashback card. So they've got a bit of a value that goes on there as well. Now, it's very hard for me to kind of say exactly what the points that I needed for this flight, these 80,000 points, would have cost me because of the welcome bonus, a couple of refer a friend links and mates signed up as well, and the other spending. But I think if you factor in, and I've got the fee that I had, I didn't pay the full fee. Rules obviously changed on Amex as I reported more recently, but back then I was able to cancel it or downgrade the card at least after a while. But broadly speaking, I think for me personally, the points themselves, the 80,000 points are worth about 834 quid as Nectar points. And let's add on another 110, say, for what I would have spent in the fee and what I might have got if I'd used a different card instead. So roughly speaking, those flights, those points were, 634 quid, something like that, right? That's not free, right? But it's still really good. But then it carries on, right? Because this isn't another one of my gripes I have with Avios and these companion vouchers is you need to pay the taxes. It's not just the points. You've got to pay taxes and fees on top, and not just for the one flight, but for both flights. So it's not really buy one, get one free. It's you get the points free, but you've got to pay the extra on top. For this particular flight, it was £500. So that is still a bargain compared to what the flights would have cost when I was booking this, which was £2,497 for the two of us. We paid roughly the equivalent of £1,134. So an absolutely huge discount in this instance. But that is not always going to be the case. And if anything, our choice of Chile as a holiday was a little bit dictated by where I could find decent savings, so to speak, on using my points and using that companion voucher. Because a lot of places I looked at, America, for example, I'd have been better off taking advantage of a sale that came along with a different airline or even with BA, but paying in cash, because that would have worked out cheaper than me using those points and paying the taxes, even with the companion voucher. And particularly the case when you look at short hauls. If you don't have a huge number of points, this companion voucher, it's a little bit pointless because you might be able to go with a different airline or save a little bit of cash. So the reason I'm telling you about this is just to kind of, not to show off on this amazing saving that I got. It's really about warning you not to get caught up in the hype of companion vouchers and Avios points. They can work. They can be good for people, but you really need to do that research before you get too invested in it. rather than just amassing lots of points, work out how many points you would need, how many points much you would need to spend to get those points. And then if you want one of these 2-for-1 vouchers, the companion vouchers, timing it, making sure you're eligible for those welcome bonuses when they come along, making sure they're not going to expire. It depends what card you've got, how long that companion voucher will last. It depends what card you've got, what class of flight you'll be able to use. So again, they can be good. The first time I've used it, really pleased with the saving, but again, it's not going to work for every place that I want to go, every time that I want to go. I haven't even talked about Avios availability either, which is a whole nother thing. But yeah, that's one thing. A few more holiday things I want to share with you. Very quickly, I want to talk about travel insurance. Now, I'm sure you know this, that you should always be booking your travel insurance as soon as you've booked your holiday, because it doesn't just cover you while you're away. It covers you for anything that might happen before that. Now, my travel insurance that has been covering me for a while now, or at least I've had it for a while, is free with my Curve Black Card. Now, I do not pay for Curve. I've got a legacy king, so I was one of the first people signing up, so I don't pay a monthly fee, so I've got some free travel insurance. So it's a nice little backup that I've got there, but I'm not convinced it's actually going to be that good. When you look at what it covers, there are some things, notable things that are missing. So this is my fault, right? I should have looked a bit earlier about a different policy to make sure I was fully covered, but I got a bit behind that. But anyway, if you listen to the episode, the Month in Money episode last month, you'll know I've been a bit under the weather. I hadn't been very well at the start of September, and also a bit of pain from injury. So I was also concerned that this insurance that I already had wasn't going to cover me, because although it's technically not a pre-existing condition because it happened after I had the policy in place, I was a bit concerned about whether that was going to work for me. But I also thought, well, if I'm going to get a new policy and I say that I've been unwell, that's going to be sky high premiums. That's going to be a ridiculous amount of money. But I went into comparison sites and I went through it all, and I was really surprised that it didn't make a difference in terms of the price. It made a huge difference that if I had need to claim while I was away, I'd have been able to, but it hadn't cost me any more. Now, of course, that is going to be very, very different depending on what's going on. If you have something more longer term, something more serious, then of course it will have a difference. But you really need to be thinking about this. It's so risky to go away and not tell them about a pre-existing condition. Even if you already have a policy in place, you need to let them know this has happened, because they might not pay out anything at all if you do have to go to hospital or have you flown home early or whatever it is because a flare-up or condition deteriorates, something like that. So well worth doing it. And I guess my learning there this month was it wasn't actually crazy expensive in my situation. What else holiday-wise? If you've listened to my episodes in the past where I've talked about the best cards to spend overseas, the fee-free cards to spend overseas, so you don't get hit with those extra charges that most debit and credit cards do, you'll know I generally recommend the Chase debit card. 1% on the bulk of your spending. And when I was away in Chile, that is what I used for most of my spending. But again, if you listen to my content when I talk about these cards, you also know I generally suggest having a backup card as well. And the whole point of this backup card is mainly to have a backup credit card, because there are some times when you do need a credit card, or it's better to use a credit card. Things like car hire, not that we hired a car on this holiday, but it's good to have that. Or sometimes hotels want something like in case the mini bar or whatever. But actually my backup came in use because there were a couple of times, I would say more than a couple, I would say 5 or 6 times when I was in Santiago, which is the capital of Chile, where I tapped my Chase card and it rejected it. Now, the app popped up with a notification. The app popped up and it said, you've just spent, I don't know, I think it was like, however much, £3.50 on a pastry. Chile is quite expensive if you ever think of going. It is quite a pricey place in lots of ways. The wine, very cheap. Everything else quite expensive. But it said it came through. I'm like, well, no, look, it says on my app. I opened up the app and showed them the transaction. I thought this didn't make any sense. They're like, okay, well, you something wrong at their end. It says I've paid. And I went off. And then it happened again. And they're like, no, it's 100%. It hasn't happened. So I paid. I was a bit worried now. I've paid twice for this other thing. But what had happened basically, when you looked in the app properly, it said pending. And that pending never became active. So for whatever reason, there was a weird thing going on where some Chase payments weren't going through. And it hasn't happened to me just overseas. It's happened to me at the Tyne Toll Tunnel in Newcastle and things like that. So a warning, basically. I think Chase is a great card to use overseas. the vast majority of the time it's going to work on you, but sometimes it won't. So have that backup. Always have that backup on you. If you are someone who uses Apple Pay, Android Pay, whatever it is right now, you can have that card on your phone. You don't even have to carry it around if you don't want to. And if you do have a physical card, I would maybe leave it in the safe at the hotel or locked in your suitcase, just in case you get pickpocketed, as happened to me, 10 years ago in Argentina. But having those extra options, really, really vital for when these cards do fail. Just make sure they are fee-free options. Holiday, little few extra bits on holiday as well. I know this, again, it's not holiday special, but I'm going to take you through these things as well. What to tell you about. Quickly share with you booking the hotels out there. I've spoken previously about I like to have a bit of options of flexibility in case my plans change, or maybe I find a late minute deal, to make sure my hotels can be cancelled in advance of the trip. Sometimes that is a day before, sometimes a week before, 2 weeks before, whatever it is. But I like to have that opportunity, and that sometimes you do pay a little bit more for that. So, not always, but most of the time I do that. And I'm really glad in this case I did that, because we actually had to switch up our itinerary. One of the places we wanted to go to in Chile was called the Atacama Desert, and it's one of the best places in the world for stargazing, except during a full moon, when obviously you can't see as much. And we were there, we planned to be there slap bang in the middle of the full moon. So we managed to actually change our accommodation around, managed to change our flights as well. But that is because I had that flexibility in my bookings that I could do that. We also had another place that messaged us to say there was construction going on, so we were able to cancel that hotel room and book somewhere else. So I'm a big fan of doing this if you're likely to be moving around. Didn't manage to get any big savings. Sometimes I've got discounts by doing it, but it's certainly something to consider. My hotel booking of choice was actually hotels.com. I never used to be a fan of this, but I'm starting to come around to it, partly because every night you stay, you get a stamp, and 10 stamps give you a free night stay. And basically each stamp, it works out on the average price you paid for the hotels over that period. So effectively 10 stamps, that's 10% cash back effectively. Yes, you have to use it on hotels.com, but I found the prices comparable there with many of the other booking sites. But also why I really like it is you can stack this. You can stack it with cashback from Quidco and Top Cashback. And I actually found a lot of the rates there were sort of 10 to 12%. Sometimes once or twice it was boosted to 20%. So actually I got a lot more back on those by doing it through those two sites than I would have done going via a cashback site straight to booking.com or whoever it might be. I did also use Metro, the newspaper. They've got, as many places do now, but they had actually some gift cards. I think it was like spend 150 quid, get £30, spend 200 quid. That went up like that. So we did a couple like that as well. And they did come through after my stay. So always don't just book, don't just go straight to the cashback site, straight to the other one. See if there are better offers out there or ways you can stack them together. And the last thing on holidays I want to tell you about is passports. And this is actually going to be relevant to you, even if you're not thinking of going on holiday to next year. So when I got back, one of the first things I did was send my passport off for renewal, because there were just over 6 months left on the passport. Now, in the past, I'd have been like, 6 months, that's ages. I'll wait till it's like 3 months away or 2 months away or whatever it might be. But since Brexit, there have been rule changes for Europe in particular. Every country's got different rules. But in Europe, you have to have 6 months of your an active passport for 6 months. Otherwise they won't otherwise they won't let you in. So I don't have any immediate plans to go away, but I was also concerned about some of the delays we've heard about earlier in the year, and so I got it sent off straight away. Actually, turnaround was really quick, like just over a week for it to get back, the new one and my old one sent back to me, which was really good. But just to kind of have a look at the date, check when yours expires, and if it is getting longer. I think I'm right in saying 6 months for Europe. It might be that it's 3 months for Europe, but 6 months for elsewhere. Because the other thing that you need to know about with your passports for Europe, and this wasn't the case for mine, but it will be the case for my wife's in about a year's time, is for Europe, you cannot, your passport, if the date that it expires is more than 10 years after it was issued, they won't let you in as well. So just have a look at your passport expiry date and see how much longer you've got left on it. Check if it's more than 10 years after the expiry date is more than 10 years after it was issued. And if it's less than 6 months or 3 months, I would just get that renewal done now. Yes, it means you're effectively paying for a passport for 9.5 years rather than 10 years, but it's certainly worth thinking about it. Some non-holiday things to talk about before we get onto deals of the week. Stamps. I don't know if I shared this in the podcast in last month. I think I did. First class stamps went up in price again in October. It's now £1.25 a pop. That is a lot of money for a first class stamp. I don't have to send things very often, but I did send a birthday card in October, and I thought, right, I'm not paying £1.25 for a stamp. Second class is 75p. I'll send it second class. Actually, I already had some second class stamps, so I didn't buy a new one. But the reason I'm telling you about it, second class, it arrived the next day. And I always find this is the case. Not always, and there's no guarantee, right? So if something's really urgent that has to arrive by a day, don't just chance it. But certainly, send something a few days in advance. Plan it ahead. That is a big difference between £1.25 for a stamp and 75p for a stamp for effectively doing the same thing. Gigs, there's something else I did. This was actually in September, so really I should have shared it in my last update. But I love live music. I used to go a lot more when I lived in London. Don't go as much nowadays for a few reasons, but one of those is the price of tickets have got so much more expensive. But there was a lovely little hack, a lovely little trick that I used to do, and I managed to do it again last month, and that was to go to an in-store gig. And these, you pay for them. Not always, sometimes you don't pay, but generally the price you pay is the price of the new album in whatever format you want. So I went to see 90s legends Ash, one of my all-time favourite bands. I went and I paid £12 for their brand new CD. I got to see them do a live set. It was not the full experience, but it was a live set. I was 5 feet away from them. I got a signed copy of the CD. I had a little chat with Tim and the guys at the end on the way out. Really, really loved it. And absolutely bargain way to see a band on the cheap. So do have a look at your local record stores, see if there are any shows coming up. And I think even if you don't really know the band, paying £10, £12 for a CD, you've got the CD, you can always sell it on afterwards if you don't like it, and you get that experience, is a great way to see live music in the times when you're easily looking at sort of 45, 50 quid, if not 80, 90 quid, if not more, to see some of these bands nowadays. Couple of quick ones for you as well. Always done, again, lots to share with you as ever. But TSB switch offer, I shared that with you a few times this year. I took advantage of it, I think at the start of this year, and it was in 2 parts. And I got the initial money straight away, but then I had to keep using my debit card 5 times a month for 6 months, which was a bit of a pain. And I would do like £1 transactions to my Amex card, £1 to my chip card, just do things like that, little small transactions every month, and 2 direct debits coming out every month. I was slightly worried because one of those direct debits, I talk about dummy direct debits quite a lot with you guys, and 2 that I often recommend are Plum and Moneybox, because it's your own money you're moving around and they're really quick and fast to set up. But the Plum direct debit, although it had transferred over from the previous bank to TSB, it didn't deduct any money. So I was a bit concerned that at the end of the day, they might say, look, no, you haven't got this, but the money appeared. So that was really good. So I got that 75 quid this time round. Too Good To Go. Again, mentioned this app for you before. I think it's a fantastic idea, a fantastic way to avoid food waste and to get some money for cheap. But 9 times out of 10, when I try it, well, to be fair, I've probably only tried it 8 times. So let's say 6 out of 8 times, 7 out of 8 times that I've tried it, I've been a bit disappointed. And the ones that I tried it in the last sort of month or so were both at railway stations. One of them was like Cafe Risata or whatever it's called. The other time I think was a Cafe Nero. And it was like $3.99 for a bag that's worth £12. So it's a big saving. And within it, I got a lot of stuff. Generally, I got like 3 sandwiches. But did I really need 3 sandwiches? So yes, I'm paying £4 for a lot of food, but I didn't need that. And I think often with this, I might be better off just buying what I wanted for a price for around the same thing. So yes, I wouldn't have had as much food, but I'm not really avoiding food waste. If I've got more than I need, I'm going to put it away. But certainly I would recommend you have a look at Too Good To Go if you haven't already. Quick one here as well. Just a reminder that just because something is cheap, it doesn't mean it's going to be a bargain if you don't use it. Long-term listeners will know there used to be a deal I used to rave about from the Telegraph Extras where you could pay £1 a month, 70p a month, or maybe nothing. You could get a free view ticket every single month. They last a year. Well, I had one which I didn't manage to use last month, so it went wasted. So I didn't really, save myself £6 on a view cinema ticket. I wasted £1. It's not much money, but again, these things can all add up. Just remember, just because something's cheap, only get it if you're going to use it. And finally, just before we get into deals of the week, I did share with you last week about, or maybe the week before, Terry's chocolate oranges at Asda with Asda Rewards. I think it's still on there. If you've got the Asda Rewards app, they will give you 75p back when you buy a chocolate orange for £1.50. I popped in at the weekend. I bought 2 plain ones or dark ones and 2 milk ones. So 2 for me, the dark ones, and 2 milk ones for my wife. I got the money back, 75p back for each of them, so it's not limited to one of them. And also another offer in there gave me another £2 back. And then because I'd made a purchase, they let me spin a wheel, which got me another £1 back. So basically, I paid £6 for 4 chocolate oranges, and I got £6 back. So it's a nice little stack there to take advantage of if you do like chocolate oranges. Sadly, I have already eaten one of them. So it was meant to be for Christmas, but it didn't quite last. But it's been a busy day. That's it for my monthly money. I'll be back in a moment with my deals of the week. So, deals to take you through. There is one major deal that I want to share with you this week, which we'll get to in a second. Some quick ones. First of all, if you are an Amazon Music customer, you might be able to get £5 off a £20 spend if you stream a podcast on Amazon Music. Now, this is a podcast, and maybe this is the perfect show to listen to next time. Use that and see if you get it. Now, you have to be eligible for the offer. The way to find that is to follow a specific link. All the links at becleverwithyourcash.com/deals take you through to the Amazon deals page, and then you'll be able to click through, see if you're eligible, then stream a show, and hopefully you'll get some money off. But again, that 5 off 20 quid, it's only good if you're going to spend 20 quid on Amazon anyway. Don't just spend 20 quid because you're saving a fiver. You can currently get 15% off certain gift cards at Tesco. This isn't going to be around for long, but one of those includes Uber and Uber Eats. Always a nice way to, if you are going to use them, to save that a little bit of cash on them. Some of the other retailers include things like the Great British Pub and the restaurant gift cards, Boohoo, a New Look. But the Uber one, if you do use them or Uber Eats, that is not a bad way to save a little bit of extra cash there as well. Now, there's a streaming service called Mubi that some of you may well know about. A lot of art house cinema, independent cinema, classic cinema. There's also a version of Mubi called Mubi Go. And what Mubi Go does is it gives you a free cinema ticket every single week to a specific film that's been specially curated. Often it was a brand new release, again, often indie or art house. And this is normally going to cost you 15, 16 quid a month. There's currently a deal where you can get 2 months for 20 quid. So if you can go every single week, that is 8 tickets for 20 quid to see these films. One of the problems with it, though, is it's not every single cinema. So you probably need to have a more independent chain near you before you commit to this, but it's certainly worth having a look if that works for you. And the last one to tell you about here, this is from HSBC. This is a new deal. This is not a bank switching deal. This is a bank opening deal. I have covered this in more detail on the YouTube channel and on the blog, but I'll quickly tell it for you guys for the podcast. If you open up an HSBC Advance or Premier account, and this is as long as you have not had any HSBC current account since the 1st of October 2018, so you could have had it and closed it since that date. But if it had it since that date, you're ruled out. And if you've opened a First Direct account since the same date, you're not eligible. But if those things don't count, you open up a new one of those accounts, you deposit £1,500 into the account within 60 days, you make 5 payments with the debit card, you register for the app, the banking app, and then open up something called the HSBC Global Money account with the app. It's free. It's not going to cost you anything, so there's no harm doing this. You will get 125 quid. You do not need to switch, okay? So if you're someone who doesn't really like switching or not comfortable with it, this is a way to get free cash without switching. And you can get more on top of this. If you open the account via a cashback site, there could be up to 55 quid available. And again, these rates do change, but at the time of recording this, you could get £55 via Top Cashback, a little bit less via Quidco. Again, check them both. So that will bring you up already even more money to do that. And then the other things I mentioned just now. But then after that, now you've got that HSBC Global Money account. If you use that 5 times between by the 21st of April 2024, there's another 80 quid on top of that. So potentially 260 quid for opening up a current account and making 10 transactions. It's effectively what you're doing across 2 different cards in that time. One of the easiest ones I would say to get money from. Again, doesn't mean it's the best option. If you do this, if you haven't done anything before, you might rather do the First Direct one, which is a £175 switching deal, but you just do the switch. It's there's none of the extra faff that comes with it. Or you might want to wait to see if HSBC comes back with a bigger offer. But again, I think it's a pretty decent one. As I said, more information on this and the other deals at becleverwithyourcash.com/deals. Well, that is it for this week's episode. I hope you've enjoyed listening to it. I hope you've learned something. And if you have been watching on YouTube, again, please do let me know what you think. It's always great to get your feedback on this. My name is Andy Webb. This is Cash Chats. Until next time, cheers. Well, there you go, guys. That was Cash Chats episode 244. I did promise something a little extra for you here at the end, didn't I? I've got no idea what that's going to be. I promised that without really thinking about it. So if you give me a second, I'll do a quick cut and I'll come back with something extra for you in a moment. Right, okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to answer a listener's question that's come through. Often I'll do this on the pod, but when we do this monthly monies, I share the wins and losses instead. So this is an extra one just for you guys on YouTube. And this one came through to that Facebook group. Remember, becleverwithyourcash.com/community is the URL to join us there. And this came from Charles. And Charles says, I'm looking for an easy access account that gives protection above the standard £85,000 limit. And his website says the NSNI Direct Saver has the full protection, but only at 3.65%. Are there any other accounts on there that people can advise on? So sadly, Charles, the vast majority of savings accounts out there, although you can put more in than that £85,000 protection, I'm going to got a whole video taking you through what the Financial Services Compensation Scheme, FSCS, how it works. You can check that one if you want more information. You can put more in, but it only protects it if the bank was to go bust up to 85k. Other than that, those NSNI bonds are the only really options for you, but the rate is so much lower. Now, as I do cover in that separate video, there are temporary extensions on this if you have money for a short period of time. Maybe you've sold a house and you haven't quite bought a new house, or an inheritance has come in and you're working out what to do with it. For a short amount of time, you are covered to a larger sum of cash. But broadly speaking, I think your best bet really is to divvy that cash up and put it into multiple accounts. Obviously, try if you can to get the best possible rate out there. becleverwithyourcash.com/savings. That's where myself and the team every day we are updating the best savings rate. So try and put it in a number of those. Just make sure they are different financial institutions. You don't want to be putting, say, half your money in NatWest and half in RBS, taking you above that limit, because they are the same bank effectively, and you still only be protected up to 85k, even if you had 50 in each, whatever it might be. So there you go, a little extra for you on YouTube. Let me know if you want to see more of these in future episodes that we release here on the channel. My name is Andy Webb. Thank you so much for listening. Remember, podfollow.com/cash chats if you want to listen to the show as you're out and about. But until next time, cheers.